We've been singing about heaven today. Songs that tell us about the greatness of heaven. We sing a song, "Heaven will surely be worth it all." But is that true? I'm reminded of the character in the book that said, "I'm not going to proceed any further without some clear indication of what I'm getting into." I'm reminded of the story of the little girl who was on the way home from church who asked her mother, "What will heaven be like?" And the mom said, "Well, it'll be like when we go to church. We'll sing praises to God. We'll be with the people, the other Christians, and we'll spend all our time together praising God." There was a long pause from the back seat, and finally the girl looked up and she said, "Do we have to go?" Maybe her idea of sitting in church wasn't the same as her mom's idea. But when we think about heaven, will it be worth it all? Will it be a place that we want to go? Will it be, as our scripture reading said this morning, a better country? You know, when we think about our country today, we live in one of the greatest, probably the greatest countries of all time. When we think about the freedoms and privileges we have, when we think about the wealth and comfort that we have, when we think about the life that we have in our country today, we live in a pretty great country. But yet the scriptures teach us, they speak of looking forward to a better country, to not being stuck in the now, but knowing that there's something greater waiting. It talks about those who lived as strangers and exiles because they were looking forward to that better country, the one that God has prepared for them. So what will make that heavenly country the better country? Today I want to look at just that. What makes that country better? What makes heaven worth it? Why we should long for it, and why we should put our value in the country to come even more than we do the great country that we live in today. Well, first off, the heavenly country will have better housing. Now, I'm not just talking about the homes that we live in. You know, in our country today, we have homes. We have a place that you can find an existence. There's land to be had. You can live in any one of many great cities that all have great different things to offer. You can own your own place. You can find somewhere that you can make your own. But the housing that will be in heaven will not just be the houses we think of today, but where we live in physically, our bodies. You see, heaven will be a better country because we will have a better body. We will live in a better place. In Philippians chapter 3, in verses 20 and 21, we read, "For our citizenship is in heaven, for we eagerly await a Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ. For He will transform the body of our humble state into conformity with the body of His glory, by the exertion of His power, that He has even to subject all things to Himself." You see, in that heavenly country, we will not be tied down physically like we are today. I don't care how good a shape you're in or how healthy that you are, your body has problems. There's not any person who sits here and goes, "Well, I'm just perfect." There's something you don't like about yourself. There's something that doesn't work the way it should. And if it does, it's limited. You see, the Bible describes our existence here as a tent compared to the permanent dwelling that we'll have in heaven. In 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 1, we know that if the earthly tent in our house is torn down, we have a building from God, a house not made with hands, eternal in heavens. You see, we have a state of existence in heaven that will be perfected. We will have a state that will be in conformity with the glory of His body. We will exist not like we do today, in frail flesh, in a human body that has illnesses and disease and fault. We will have something greater. Now, that isn't to say that in our new bodies we'll be something totally different. We will be what we are, but we will be in a better state. 1 Corinthians 15:49 says, "Just as we have borne the image of the earthly, we will also bear the image of the heavenly." We'll have something better. You know, a lot of times we'll have maybe a car or even our house, And there's certain aspects of it that we like. We like things to be comfortable. We don't want to change, but eventually it starts to wear out. It doesn't run, and things fall apart. And we know we have to fix it, right? We have to do something, but we like, oh, I don't want to have to go through all that rigmarole. I don't want to learn something new. Well, what the greatest thing about heaven is, we'll still be our identity. But we'll put aside all the things that make us weak. All the things that bring ruin and misery. Because let's be honest, right now, you're dying. I don't know if you realize it, but there's an expiration date on you right now. Like a jug of milk in the refrigerator that has a date before it'll be used, before it starts to go bad. You have one. And if you're like me, you're beginning to think, maybe I've already passed it, right? Because, boy, it's harder. But what we know of is this life is limited. This body is temporary. It is falling apart. It is dying. And every one of us, no matter where we start, is facing that end date. But that eternal existence will be different. It will be a body of perfection, one that will not see corruption. It will be one, the heavenly housing will be one that is perfect. You see, that heavenly country will be better because we will exist in a better state. But we will also exist in a better culture. When we talk about culture, we talk about the thinking, the actions of the people of that country. We think about a cultural environment today, and we think of how good of a culture we have. Now, do we have things we don't like in our culture? Yeah, but when you think about it, we live in a society that values fair play. We live in a society that recognizes individuals and their rights. And we live in a society that cares genuinely for people. Parts of our culture, we see the benefit of that. We understand that we have a good system in place. But even with that being said, we know it's not perfect. But in 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 13, we read, "But according to his promises, we are looking to a new heaven and a new earth in which righteousness dwells." Righteousness, it's the state of being right, being good, being what it should be. My daughter and I were having a conversation the other day, and she was talking about it. She goes, I'm amazed at what people get paid the most money and what people don't. She says, isn't it amazing that a celebrity who can really do nothing, maybe even nothing even good, can get paid a whole bunch of money just to show up to a place? And people will just throw stuff on them because they're famous. And we think that's just not right. When there are people who do noble and good works that don't get paid hardly anything. What's wrong with our society? Well, that's just not right. Well, that's not righteousness. But in the heavenly country, righteousness will dwell. Everything will be right. Righteousness changes a people. Proverbs 14:33 says, righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a disgrace to any people. Yeah, that's a problem. As good as our culture is in our world, we always have something we're not getting right. We go back in time and we can see how our culture had certain good virtues like honesty and integrity and thriftiness. They're good part of our qualities, but we also see at the same time we had a lot of prejudice, a lot of hate. But it seems like whenever we fix something, we mess something else up. We get a little less judgmental, but we get a little less holy. We get a little less of this area, and we get a little worse here. And we can never get it all right. We can never get where everything is in tune with the way it should be. And as culture ebbs and flows, we can look at it at any given time and see its faults. And no matter how good it is, it can never seem to be right. But that's the difference in the heavenly country. Righteousness will dwell. Because you won't have those elements that drag us down. Revelation 22:15 says, outside of heaven are the dogs and the sorcerers, the immoral persons, the murderers, the idolaters, those who love and practice lying. You see, that'll be the difference. The reason we will have a better culture in heaven is because we'll have better citizens in heaven. The heavenly country will have better citizens because it won't have wickedness. Revelation 21:27 says, and nothing unclean and no one who practices abomination and lying shall ever come into it, but only those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life. Sometimes you'll hear somebody make that statement, we like our house, but the neighborhood has gone down. What are they really saying? We're saying people have moved in that we don't like. Maybe they're saying that from a negative perspective, but maybe they're saying it from the perspective of, well, we used to not have to worry about, we could leave something outside and it would never get stolen, but now there's a lot of thieves around. We used to have to not worry about safety because everybody was kind and good, but now we have some people that behave in such a way that you think they can harm people that are around us. You never know what's going on. That idea that the wickedness of the world will pollute it. But you see, that's not the case in heaven, because nothing unclean, no one who practices unrighteousness will be allowed in it. Ephesians chapter 5, verses 5 and 6 says, "For this you know with certainty, that no immoral person, impure person, or covetous man who is an idolater will have any inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and God. Let no one deceive you with empty words. Because of these things the wrath of God comes upon the sons of disobedience." Know it with certainty that heaven will not have wrong behavior there. You ever been with somebody who ruins the experience? You can be in a place that's of extreme beauty, extreme enjoyment, and everybody's having a good time, but there's that one person who just brings everybody down. They have a bad attitude. They're selfish. Something about it just you're saying, you're just ruining this thing for me. Heaven, there won't be anybody to ruin it, because the sin will be taken away. The sin will be covered. The problems that we have will be left behind. And it will never be infiltrated. It will never be changed. It will never, over time, we'll look at it and say, oh, things have gone bad. Oh, people have changed. Because that's not how heaven works. See, heaven is a place where only good will dwell. When Jesus talked about the parable of the rich man and Lazarus in Luke chapter 16 and verse 26, he makes a statement there when the man is wanting to come from heaven back to heaven to get that cool drink of water, send Lazarus down. He says there exists a great chasm between the two places. No one is able to come from here to you, and no one will ever cross over from there to us. You see, there will be a separation. There won't be someone that can come in and ruin it, that'll bring sin in and taint it. We'll have better citizens. Everyone that will be there will have a right to be there. There will be righteousness. There will be holiness. Because of that, there will be better care. We'll be better provided for, cared for. We think about our country today and we think of like care and health care. And we live in a system that has we live in a country that has great health care. I mean, we think of our ability if we have disease and infirmity, people that we can turn to, how many doctors are available, how many hospitals are available, how much treatment is available. We can do things, if you are a citizen of this country, disease and illnesses that would wipe out other places are minor in comparison. Because we have that great system of care. But everyone will sit here and go, yeah, but, there's problems with it. We may be able to fix it, but there's still difficulties. But in heaven, Revelation 21:4 says, He will wipe away every tear from their eye. There'll be no longer death, no longer mourning or crying or pain. The first things have passed away. We might be able to fix the pain, but maybe you can feel the pain, but it's still there. You'll still go through the suffering of losing someone, the mourning. No matter how good a doctor you have, there's still death. No matter what great insurance you have, what great treatment, hospitals there are, there will still, it all ends the same. But in heaven, that better country, we'll be perfectly cared for. Every tear will be wiped away. Every suffering and pain that we face on this earth, the inevitable, won't be there. It'll be a place of perfect care. Revelation 21:25 says it this way. It says, in there's daytime, for there'll be no night there. Its gates will never be closed. You see, that visual may not hit home to us as it did to people of that day. When they thought about a city, the biggest concerns, if you were living especially in a large city where it came at night, that's when the thieves broke in, right? It still happens today. That's when the enemy came. That's when the city was attacked. And so what did you do? When you came home, they shut the gates. They locked everything up to protect it so you could sleep at night. You didn't have to worry. No one would come and destroy it. I didn't have to be concerned about what was going to happen to me. But in heaven, the perfection is so great that there is no night. There is no time where you worry about the darkness coming in. The gates never have to be closed because there's never anyone that could come in and cause destruction. It's a place of perfect care. Revelation 7:17 says, "The Lamb in the center of the throne will be their shepherd, and he will guide them to springs of waters of life, and will wipe every tear away from their eye." Once again, that promise that the tears will be taken away. But also the waters of life will be there. We'll have what we need. We'll have the shepherd, the Lamb, who will be in the center. Because not only will we have better care, we'll have better control. We'll have better government. You know, our system of government is a great system. But it's not without its flaws. I don't know if you like or love the president, but you know that no matter who's in that office, they can't take care of you. They can't do everything for you. They don't have the power to do that. But in the heavenly country, the one who is in control, the one who rules can. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 17, it tells us when we exit this world that we will meet him in the clouds, and we will meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we always be with the Lord. Therefore, comfort one another with these words. Why would it be of comfort? Because we'll be where Jesus is, and the Lord will be there, and we'll always be there with him. The one who rules will be right beside. It won't be a distant king or a distant government or someone that we may happen to talk to once, or maybe they'll listen to our petition, or they're just concerned with everything else that a mere person like us has no chance or no worry about. But the government of heaven, his house, he has prepared for us, and he has a place for us. In John chapter 14, verses 2 and 3, "In my Father's house there are many dwelling places. If it were not so, I would have told you. For I go and prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, you may also be." You see, the one that rules over heaven is the one who knows us better than we know ourselves. You know, we think about that in government today. We think about a government enacts a policy or does something, and we say, well, they don't understand my life. They don't understand that, right? They try to do something that's best for everybody and, in essence, sometimes do nothing for anybody. But heaven won't work that way. The ruler of heaven knows his subjects. He is there among them. And that's what will make it great, because the Lord will be there. The one who has the power to do everything, to control, to care, he will be among the midst, and we'll have a place with him. Revelation 22 verses 3 and 4 says, "There will no longer be any curse. The throne of God and the Lamb will be in it, and his bondservants will serve him. They will see his face, and his name shall be on their forehead." There's no curse or separation. There's no division. The master will be with his servants. The shepherd will be among his sheep. We will see his face. His name shall be on his forehead. See, that government in heaven is far superior because it has a far superior ruler. One that knows us and loves us and cares for us. One that oversees everything that we need. Surrounded by the faithful. Surrounded by the holy. In a place where everything that is done right. In an existence that will never fade away or fall apart. Years ago, there was a story written by Edward Everett Hale. It's called "A Man Without a Country." It's a story of a man who, at a time in his life where he felt his government was failing him, decides that he no longer wants to be part of the United States. He denounces his country and flees it to avoid the persecution that he felt because of the things that he had done. And he becomes a traitor of sorts, one that denies his country and goes away. And the story comes along later and meets the man later in his life, and he begins to realize what he's given up. In the story, it talks about the shrine that he has made to his former country and how great he realizes it was. Because at the time, he didn't think about it. He was selfish. He was concerned with himself, and he denied his country. And now he looks back and says, how good did I have it? But he was a man without a country, living in a vessel that travels from place to place, never having a home because he had given up that great country. Country of heaven. It's not a country that we are born into. It is a country that we are reborn into. Jesus told Nicodemus, if a man is to enter into the kingdom of heaven, he must be born of water and of spirit. He must be born again. You see, in our country, there's been some debate about that, about citizenship that comes with just the fact that you were born in this land. But the kingdom of heaven isn't one of those. You're not born into it, but you are reborn into it. You see, when a person acknowledges that Jesus Christ is their ruler, He is their King, He is their Lord. When one realizes that a person can't get into heaven if he's contained in sin, he's got to get rid of that sin, he's got to turn from that sin. And when he's given the means of being a part of that country, a citizen of that place, when he is born again of water and spirit, when his sins are washed away so he can go to a place that is holy and right. When a sinful man looks and longs for that better country and realizes, how can I ever be a part of that place with what I am? Jesus says, I can take away your sin so you have a right to the tree of life. You have a place in heaven. Wouldn't we want to be a part of that country? Wouldn't we want to put our citizenship there? Wouldn't we want to long for that land, even if we're not there now? Wouldn't we be fools to ever deny it, to ever give it up? I can imagine on the day of judgment there will be many people without a country. Many people who will long for that better country and think, why, oh why, did we give up what we had? Why, oh why, did we not become part of that better country? A country ruled perfectly by the one who was perfect. A country that's free from every problem and every difficulty we face. A country where we will spend eternity. Don't you want to be part of that country? The better country? To be part of that country, you must be born again of water and in spirit, declaring Jesus as your ruler, living a life that separates you from this world but puts you in citizenship in heaven. Today I ask, are you a citizen of that better country? Is your destination heaven? Are you secure that when this world ends, that your place will be with the Lord? If not, you have a decision to make. A decision that will secure your future. A decision to follow Christ. If you're ready to do so today, if you need to put on Christ in baptism, or if a Christian, there's something that's keeping you from that better country that you need to repent of, we offer you the chance to do so while we sing this song of invitation.